Ladies and gents, Hugo from Insurance is going to talk cyber security.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Hugo Jacquot. I'm the Managing Director of Insurance. And I'm going to come to talk to you today about cyber risk insurance. So just a bit of an introduction. We are an insurance broker, an independent insurance broker. We look after the needs of super yacht owners when it comes to their insurance, so hull and machinery, P&I, crew insurance, etc. And one of the very important aspects I want to talk to you about today is the cyber risk insurance. Now, cyber risk insurance might be for yachts, of course, but we would like to talk to you about businesses as well. And I'll be saying that several times over the course of this talk, which is insuring the entire chain. What do I mean by that? It's all nice and well insuring the yachts or insuring a business. But if we don't insure the entire chain, there are gaps. So, what are we going to start with? Well, we're gonna start by talking about how we choose our cyber risk insurance partners. Maybe insurance company, maybe an insurance broker, etc. Then, all about insuring the entire chain, starting with the yachting businesses and then moving all the way down to the yacht, or the other way around, starting from the yachts and going up to all the businesses that are linked to the yacht. Then we'll be talking about how do we insure yachts and super yachts for cyber risks. Are they insured now? Do we know that? Let's find out. Right, and the most important thing, and that's why I'm glad there is a timer down there, because I want you to ask questions, because there will be questions, there usually is question about cyber risk, so I really want all of you to ask questions at the end, so we'll make sure we'll keep plenty of time for that. All right, how do we pick our insurance partner for cyber risks? Well, first of all, when you look at the partner, do they have a dedicated product? Do they have a dedicated team of people that are going to be here to respond to a cyber incident? Are they going to be helping you with your cyber risk claims? So all very, very important factors. We really want to make sure also that you can understand the wording, the policy wording, to make sure that should something arise, you're going to have cover, and you're going to have an insurance policy that responds. I think with the panel earlier, it was mentioned that sometimes insurers have a bad reputation, like sometimes sales brokers have a bad reputation for different reasons. And it's very important that we understand that a policy needs to be put in place and has to pay claims. So your insurance broker needs to make sure they read the wording for you and that they explain to you any exclusion, any limitations. Now, we are often asked, and that can be a question later, and we can expand on that, we're often asked, is there any prerequisite to have those insurance policies? Which is a very good question. Is there not? We'll find out a little bit later. So, also, the wording needs to be written in plain English. You don't want to be having an insurance policy for cyber risk, which only a hacker can understand. Then we're not selling you the right product. We're not providing you the right product. So it needs to be self-explanatory. And will your insurers or your partner, when it comes to cyber risk, will they be helping you putting measures in place to make sure that before thinking about a claim on cyber, you have put the right measures in place to prevent that claim? Talking about risk mitigation, loss prevention, very important factor as well. All right, so if we want to insure the entire chain and the yacht eventually, we need to talk about insuring the businesses. Which businesses? Well, that's all of us in the yachting industry. It's very important that all of us have some sort of cyber risk insurance. Why? Because for a very important reason is that we all responsible for that chain of information. We all have confidential information, If I take a crew employer, for example, there is confidential data that they've got about the crew, personal data. We all know, we're in the UK, so you all know about GDPR. It's the same across the EU. That data has got a value attached to it. That data is protected. That data, if you lose it, you'll potentially face some issues, some fines, etc. Now, if a hacker gets into your system, pick up that data, well, ultimately, you were the holder of that data. You were responsible for it as a business. So, and it's a little bit interesting that in a world where everybody is now asking for KYC to know your customer, you're going to collect all that data from your customer. You have that data in your system, therefore, you have to protect it. Therefore, if you fail to protect it, you need to have insurance in place that's going to cover you should you lose that data and help you defend yourself against a claim from the third party. So, what can it cover? Well, I'm not going to go through the entire list, but I can certainly tell you that when we have those meetings with our clients, which are businesses, one always comes back. Oh, you remember when we paid that invoice and actually that was a fraudulent invoice. Many, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. Don't worry. Don't start looking away. It's okay. It's just invoice fraud is the most common across the yachting industry. Why? It's because it's easy. Captains pay invoices. They pay a number of providers. Managers pay a number of providers. It's an easy. We are an easy target for that. So now, many of you have been putting procedures in place. But we were talking about AI earlier. Well, we shouldn't be worried about AI, but as to help our business, but we should be worried also about what AI can do to us in terms of cyber attack. If we as business using AI, the cyber attackers are using it against us as well. Don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. There is a happy ending. So when we come back to invoice fraud and fund transfer fraud, you make sure your policy covers that. But that's not the only thing. I've seen so many businesses worrying about invoice fraud. That's the only cover they took up. Well, that's another way of going wrong about cyber. It's just to cover the things that you know of you've had in the past, the claims that you've had in the past, or that you couldn't claim because you didn't have that insurance policy. So, what can we do? What else can happen? Well, the cyber extortion. It's something that happens on business. I go into your system, I claim that I've got access to your system, ask for a ransom, and then what happens after? That's extortion, that policy that includes extortion is, again, it's not always that business purchased it because they're thinking that hasn't happened to us. So what do? We don't purchase it. So make sure you purchase a policy that will cover as many items as possible. Extortion, the response cost. What do you do when you're being attacked by a hacker? Well, you're going to call an IT company. You're going to pay for that IT company that's going to help you restore your service. That could be covered under an insurance policy. So all this is extremely important that we realize as businesses in yachting that we are exposed if we don't have the right insurance policies in place to costs. You're always exposed to the threat of hackers, but you're exposed to the costs if you don't have the right insurance policy in place. So let's just remember that. It's the cost that we are talking about, the cost of repairing damage to a third party, the cost of restoring your system, the cost of the potential extortion, the cost of the invoice fraud. So I've talked about all this. You have liabilities to the third parties, to fines, and any cost that could occur linked to the cyber attack. For example, direct loss of profit to your business. They take your website down. you're unable to operate, or damage to your image as a business. PR cost could be covered by your insurance policy. Again, very important that when you think and you talk to your insurance broker about how do I cover my business for cyber risk, you're really looking at how much am I being covered for, what kind of items I am being covered for. And the list should be as long as possible because there are many, many, many items that could be thought of. All right, enough about businesses. I think I've talked to you enough about this. So, how do we get to cover the yachts? Now that we've covered all the businesses in the chain, the yacht manager, the family office, everybody's covered, anybody in the chain is covered. Now we'll talk about the yachts. Now, do we think that yachts are covered as standard for cyber risks? Not going to ask you to answer that question, it's written here. They're not. Most of them, most of the standard wording of hull and machinery and P&I insurer exclude cyber risks. What do we do with that? You're going to tell me. Well, that's why I'm here today, is to make sure that we really understand what we can do very easily to make sure that we improve that situation where many yachts in the worldwide fleet are not insured for cyber risk. Before I give you the answer, which is here, why do we think that is? The main reason is education. I've been in many, many conversations, owners, manager, owners representative, lawyers, sales brokers. When we bring up the cyber risk topic, most of them will either dismiss it and say, that can't happen to us, or they will say, we'll talk with our AVAT company, and we've checked, and they told us that it's perfectly fine, and it's all good. Our bridge is impregnable, and we've changed the Wi-Fi password to not the name of the yacht, it's the name of the yacht plus 1, 2, 3, it's fantastic, it all works. Now, the reason why this is a mistake is because in the, now, according to them, unlikely event that they are attacked and a loss occur on the vessel, there would not be any cover available because of the exclusion that we are talking about. So from this point, there is two ways of doing it. Either you buy what we call a buyback of the cyber risk exclusion on your hull and machinery and your P&I policy, or you buy a full-on cyber risk policy, which will be closer to which will cover as close to possible as what we cover. You could have covered with an insurance for businesses. Okay, so the buyback, what will it cover? It'll cover the hull damage, again, because if you have a hull damage out of the cyber risk, it wouldn't be covered if you don't have the buyback. If your policy excluded, it wouldn't cover grounding, it wouldn't cover collision, it wouldn't cover injuries, it wouldn't cover liabilities. So you can imagine you could be exposed not only financially for the loss on the vessel, but liabilities as well for wreck removal, for example. Okay, so what can a dedicated cyber risk policy can cover on top of just the buyback? Well, it's pretty much everything we've looked at with the businesses, with the exception of the fact that you could add extras, which would be emergency accommodation and a replacement yacht. Those covers are expensive. That's why there is less of an uptake for them. But this would be covering the entire risk in the same way that we would do it for businesses. And in addition, with that full-on policy, you would get access to 24/7 claims management services, crisis response team, risk management surveys, training for your crew, and etc. So, to summarize, we really, as an industry, need to cover that cyber risk with insurance, as well as doing risk managing that cyber risk itself. And when it comes to the yacht, let's just make sure that we have the discussion with owners, so one, they are aware, and then make sure that yacht owners talk to their insurance brokers and that they actually see what's available to them. Because to this day, there is still not enough uptake for that cyber risk insurance, which means we leave owners exposed. All right, so I've promised time for questions. There is 4 minutes. Hopefully there is more. Let's move on to the questions, please, if there is any, or in the audience.
Any questions? Anyone want to raise a hand and get a microphone over there? Or anonymously post on Slido? No?
Well,
all good?
I can share some of the common questions we've been asked if, until it actually comes up or not. So basically, some of the questions we've been asked very, very often is we finish this presentation and then someone says to us, well, we've been attacked, we've been asked for extortion. Would the cover respond, knowing that we've just have the basic Office 365 and Microsoft Defender type of software? Is it okay? The answer is yes. If you're discussing that policy with your insurance broker, you tell what you've got. We insure a lot of small businesses for cyber risks, and there is no, I'll say it again, there is no prerequisite for buying that policy, asking you to have certain IT system or etc. So here's an answer to a question you haven't asked yet. Okay, surely you need to evidence sustainable policy and procedure as conditions. There you go, I've answered the question already. So the answer is no. It's as simple as the fact that if you're a small business, they'll know that what you are doing is you are simply using what's available to you. So you're using Office 365, you're using a domain that you bought online, and they know that. So they don't expect you to have a full-on IT team and etc. And when it comes to a yacht, it's the same thing. The yachts, yes, there is some yachts that are going to be great at it. They're going to have an aviator company that's going to do everything for them, and they'll think they are impregnable. But it will be, to some extent, different risk for underwriters, for sure, but you will have access to that policy. So my main thing here today is to tell you, don't think that there is going to be a lot of prerequisite, a lot of complicated wording for you to get that cyber risk insurance policy. Or for that matter, that it's going to be expensive, because it isn't in comparison to the exposure that we all have as businesses and yachts. What's the biggest hole in cyber security? Well, I think I understand that question. Well, I'm going to answer in the way I understand that question. There is the human factor is the biggest problem when it comes to cybersecurity. There's not much we can do about it other than training, and that's why any good insurer, you remember what I said about choosing your insurance correctly, they will provide training to staff member if it's business, yacht crew if it's for a yacht policy, and that's the best way to protect yourself, because most of the claims come from human errors or someone clicking on a link they shouldn't have, and etc., etc. There are also, and the smallest part of it is the attack that are coming into someone coming into your office, into the boat, and accessing the system directly. Now, you might think that's a remote risk. Maybe for a business, if you're a small business, you monitor who comes in. For a yacht at the shipyard, I mean, like most of you, I've been in yachts in a shipyard, and the number of people that come in, yes, they're vetted at the entrance, but without telling you how I know that, that's pretty much the easiest way to get access to a boat system. Enough said, I think. Any more questions? Done good with time there.
Looks like we're good. perfect timing, Hugo. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
That's fantastic. If anyone's got any questions for Hugo, see him afterwards.
Thank you.